It was one of those rare snowstorms that comes out of nowhere in the Midwest. Big, heavy flakes that fall silently, covering everything in white. I had been working late at my small accounting office, and by the time I left it was already past 10. The streets were nearly empty except for the occasional car that left streaks of red and white light through the falling snow. I was tired, cold, and ready to be home. My apartment was about 20 minutes away from the office, and normally I would have taken the highway. But I decided to take the back roads that night. Something about the snow made the usual route feel strange, almost dangerous. Maybe it was the way the streetlights cut jagged lines through the snow, or the way the trees along the road bent under the weight of ice and snow. But I just didn't feel like taking my usual path. I remember my car struggling a little on the slick roads, my tires spinning against the ice, making that soft, awful grinding noise. I kept telling myself I was being paranoid, that nothing could happen, but even saying it out loud didn't make me feel any better. I passed a stretch of road that had a steep drop-off on one side, and the snow made the edges almost invisible. I had to slow down to a crawl, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping me alive. Then I saw it. A truck, old and dark green, parked halfway on the road up ahead. Its hazard lights were flashing weakly, barely visible in the snowstorm. At first, I thought it was abandoned, like maybe someone had slid off the road. But then I saw a figure standing beside it. I squinted, trying to make it out through the thick falling snow, but it was too far to see details. I slowed even more, my heart starting to race, and as I got closer, the figure waved. It was a man wearing what looked like a heavy coat. He looked desperate, almost panicked, like something had just happened to him. I rolled down my window a little, cold air rushing in. "You need help?" I shouted over the wind. He nodded quickly. "Yeah, my truck, it won't start. I need a jump, please." I hesitated for a second. Usually I wouldn't stop for someone on a deserted road at night, but the snowstorm made it feel urgent, like he wasn't lying. And honestly, I couldn't just drive past him. I grabbed my jumper cables from the trunk. I always kept them in the car just in case, and pulled over a safe distance. As I stepped out, the snow instantly soaked through my shoes and the wind made it hard to breathe. I waved him over. "All right, let's see what we can do." He smiled nervously and moved toward my car. That's when I noticed something strange. He didn't look injured or tired or wet from the snow at all. His coat was practically dry, and his boots looked almost clean, which in the middle of a snowstorm seemed odd. But I shrugged it off. Maybe he had just been standing under a tree. I hooked up the jumper cables while he leaned against his truck, watching me. His eyes, I can't explain it, but they were too calm, like he was waiting for something to happen. I shook the feeling off, telling myself I was being paranoid. I started my car, then moved the cables to his battery. Nothing happened. I tried again. Still nothing. He didn't say anything, just kept standing there watching. I fumbled a few more times, and finally the truck roared. I let out a sigh of relief. "There you go." He smiled again, this time wider, and it made me uneasy. "Thanks," he said. "Really appreciate it." I nodded and stepped back into my car, ready to leave, but he said something that made my stomach drop. "You know," he said casually, "it's not really the snow that gets people out here." I blinked. What do you mean? He shrugged like it was nothing. Accidents happen, yeah. Cars slip, people lose control, but most people don't make it far. Not on nights like this. I swallowed hard. I'm fine. I just need to get home. He laughed, quiet, almost a whisper. Yeah, sure. Everyone says that. I started the engine. The snow had gotten heavier. Visibility was worse. As I pulled onto the road, I noticed his truck. It hadn't moved. He didn't even look like he was getting in. He just stood there, waving as if he was saying goodbye. I told myself it was over, that I was being silly. I drove faster, but the snow made it hard to see, and I had to slow down again when I reached a curve near a wooded area. That's when I saw the tracks. Tire marks in the snow, not from his truck, but from another vehicle. Fresh tracks cutting across the road as if someone had swerved off the main path. I tried not to think about it. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was a deer, a snowplow, anything. But something about the way the tracks were pressed into the snow made me uneasy. My fingers tightened around the steering wheel. The road narrowed as I approached a bridge. The snow was falling so hard now the streetlights barely shone through the white. And that's when I saw him again. The man from the truck. He was standing at the edge of the bridge. No coat, no hood this time, just his clothes sticking to him from the snow. And he wasn't waving. He was just standing. My foot hovered over the brake, my heart pounding in my ears. For a moment I thought I imagined him. Maybe it was the snow, the way it made everything look blurred. But then he moved, stepped closer to the railing. I panicked. I wanted to drive past, but the road was icy. My car slid slightly as I tried to accelerate, and the tires squealed against the road. I slammed the brakes. My hands shook so badly I thought I would lose control. Then he turned toward me. Not walking, not running, just turning, facing me. And that's when I saw his face clearly for the first time. His eyes locked on mine. I accelerated, barely controlling the car as I slid past him. I didn't look back. I just drove. Faster than I'd ever driven in my life, slipping through the snow, praying I wouldn't hit the ditch or a tree. My hands were numb, my teeth chattering from the cold, but I didn't care. All I cared about was getting away. When I finally reached my apartment, I parked in the garage and sat there for a long time, gripping the wheel, breathing hard, trying to make sense of what had just happened. I called the police and told them about the man on the road, about the truck, but by the time they sent someone out, the snow had erased all tracks. They didn't find anything. For weeks after that night, I kept replaying it in my head. The snow, the way he appeared out of nowhere, I couldn't understand it. Was it a prank? Someone testing me? I didn't know. And I didn't want to know. I avoided driving on back roads after that, especially at night, especially when the snow was falling. But every time I hear about a storm coming, I remember him. That man. And I wonder how many people drive past him thinking they're helping someone. How many people end up in the wrong place at the wrong time. It was late January, the kind of night where the cold makes your lungs ache with every breath, and the snow crunches sharply under your boots. I was driving home from a shift at the diner, the roads practically empty and the highway lights were dim. Most people stayed home, but not me. I had bills to pay and a dog waiting in a tiny apartment that always seemed colder than it should be. The snow was coming down hard, made it almost impossible to see past the hood of my car. I kept one hand on the steering wheel and the other gripping a cup of coffee. The heater was struggling. That kind of night makes you feel small, like the world is just endless white and you're trapped in the middle of it. About 20 minutes into the drive, my car started acting up. The engine hesitated, then sputtered. My stomach sank. I was in the middle of nowhere because the nearest town was miles back and ahead was just snow and empty trees. I tried to start the car again, and that's when it died completely. Nothing. Just the faint hum of the heater and the sound of the wind pushing against the doors. My phone had no signal, of course. I stepped out, the cold instantly biting through my coat, and tried to wave down any passing car. Nothing. Just silence, except for the snowstorm. The more I walked, the more I realized I didn't even know which way to go. The snow had covered any tracks. Then I saw the house. It was set back from the road, small. There was a dim porch light flickering. I thought maybe I could ask for help. Maybe someone had a phone I could use. Maybe they could tow my car or let me warm up. I didn't even think about it twice. I walked up the driveway, snow crunching under my boots. When I got close, I noticed the house was quiet. Too quiet. There was no smoke from a chimney, no sounds of a TV, no laughter, just the flickering light. I knocked on the door, then again louder this time. Nothing. Then the door creaked open. It wasn't like it swung wide open. It was ajar, like someone had left it that way. I hesitated, heart hammering, but the cold was unbearable. I called out, "Hello? Anybody here?" No answer. I stepped inside, shaking off the snow. The house was old, wood floorboards creaking under my weight, and the only light came from that single flickering bulb above the hallway. I walked slowly, trying to see if anyone was inside. That's when I noticed it on the kitchen table, spread out like it had been left in a hurry, were plates, forks, and mugs, some tipped over. Dust covered everything except the cups, which were still wet inside. Someone had been here recently. I called out again, louder this time. "Hello, is anyone here?" No response. I felt stupid for coming in, but my body needed warmth. I moved toward the living room. That's when I heard it thump, 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 coming from the basement. I couldn't ignore it. I told myself it was probably just someone in the house. Maybe a neighbor who had sought shelter. I forced myself to go down the stairs. The basement was dark, colder than the rest of the house. I reached for the light switch on the wall, but it didn't work. No surprise there. The bulb had probably burned out years ago. My phone was dead, so I couldn't even use it as a flashlight. My hand shook as I felt along the railing and stepped down slowly. Then I saw it. A large trunk sat in the middle of the room. No signs of anyone living down there, no footprints, nothing. Just the trunk. I told myself to turn around, to run back to the car, but my curiosity, or maybe my stupidity, pushed me forward. I reached the trunk and with trembling hands opened it. Inside were packages. Brown paper tied up with string, and then I noticed them. Names written on the packages in a neat hand, followed by dates. Dates from the last few weeks. Before I could react, I heard the front door slam. I jumped. My first thought was that someone else had entered. I ran back up the stairs, heart pounding, and I saw it. A man standing in the doorway wearing a thick coat and a ski mask. He didn't say a word. He just looked at me. I panicked. I stumbled back, tripping over a chair. The man moved toward me slowly. I turned and ran for the door, throwing it open and plunging into the snowstorm. I didn't stop. I didn't look back. I kept running until I tripped into a ditch. I lay there, covered in snow, shaking uncontrollably, hoping he wouldn't follow me. I don't know how long I stayed there, minutes, hours. The snow was relentless, blinding, and I didn't dare move. Eventually, I crawled to the road, the one I had come in on, and waved at a passing car like a madman. The driver stopped, and I don't even remember what I said. I just knew I had to get out of there. That night changed me. I don't drive in snowstorms anymore. I don't stop at empty houses, and I never ever underestimate the sense of wrongness you get when something just doesn't feel right. It was a snowy Friday evening in northern Minnesota. The kind of snow that blankets everything in white. The streets empty except for the occasional headlights cutting through the falling flakes. I was driving home from a late shift at the hospital. My car was old, but it was reliable, and I had a good heater, which I was grateful for because the temperature was easily dropping below zero. The roads were slick, and I remember gripping the steering wheel a little tighter than usual. I kept telling myself to slow down, even though I was only going around 40 miles per hour. The snow muffled the world outside, made it quiet in a way that felt almost unreal. I was alone, or so I thought. I took the back roads to avoid traffic. It was longer but peaceful, or at least that's what I kept thinking. The snow was thick, and every once in a while I'd see a farmhouse with smoke curling out of the chimney, lights in the windows. I imagined myself inside one of them, away from the cold. But the road I was on was long, straight, and surrounded by trees heavy with snow. The silence started to feel different the farther I drove. That's when I saw it. A truck, parked on the side of the road, its hazard lights blinking. At first, I didn't think much of it. People pull over in the snow all the time, but something about it made my stomach tighten. It wasn't just parked. The door was open, the engine was off. No one was around, or at least no one I could see. I slowed down, curious, and I noticed a man leaning against the truck. He wasn't moving much, just standing there, shoulders hunched against the cold. I should have kept driving. I really should have. But for some reason, I felt like I needed to check. Maybe he was hurt. Maybe someone had called in a tow and he was waiting. I rolled down my window just a little and called out, "Hey, you need help?" He looked at me, and that's the moment my stomach dropped. There was nothing friendly in his face. He nodded slightly, like he'd been waiting for me to speak. I forced a small smile. "Do you need a ride or something?" He shook his head. Then he did something I still can't explain. He pointed ahead down the road in a kind of insistence, not threatening, not friendly, just pointing. I remember my gut tightening, telling me I should turn around and leave. But my curiosity or stupidity, I don't know which, made me say, okay, if that's the way you need to go." I drove past him slowly. He stayed there, just leaning against the truck, watching me pass. Something didn't feel right, but I pushed the feeling down. It's hard to explain. It wasn't fear yet. It was just a bad vibe. A few minutes later, my car started to act up. The engine sputtered, coughing like it was choking. I pressed the accelerator. Nothing. The heater flickered and went out. The snow was coming down harder now, thick flakes that made it almost impossible to see more than a few feet ahead. I tried turning the key again. Nothing. My phone had almost no signal, just a little bar flashing red that it couldn't connect. I pulled over to the side of the road, heart hammering. I tried to start the car again, but it didn't. I thought maybe I should just wait. Wait for another car. But the road was empty. Not a single vehicle had passed in the last 10 minutes. That's when I saw headlights. Far off at first, then closer, brighter, cutting through the snow. Relief washed over me. Someone was coming. I waved my arms through the window, trying to signal them. But as the car got closer, my relief curdled into something else. It wasn't another car. It was the same truck, the one from the side of the road. And the man. He was sitting behind the wheel this time. Engine running, lights on, moving slowly as if waiting for me to notice. My throat went dry. I thought maybe I was imagining it, but no. There he was. And he wasn't driving past me. He was pulling over, slowly, deliberately, to block my car. I tried starting the car again. Nothing. I tried the door. Locked. I was shaking now, teeth chattering, not from the cold. I didn't know what to do. The truck stopped a few feet in front of my car. He didn't get out. He didn't honk, just sat there, engine idling. And then, without warning, he started inching closer, like a predator circling. I had no choice. I had to move. I hit the brake, then the gas, then the brake again. The snow was slick. My car wouldn't budge. I was trapped. I was completely trapped. Then, out of nowhere, my headlights caught something in the snow. A path. The edge of the road, just a little space between the trees. It was risky, but I took it. Tires spinning, snow flying everywhere, heart pounding, trying not to hit a tree. The truck stayed on the road, didn't follow, didn't chase, just stayed there. Watching. I don't know why. I don't know why he didn't chase me, but I didn't stop. I drove through that snow-covered ditch for what felt like an eternity, fishtailing, almost hitting trees, almost sliding into a frozen creek. Finally, after what had to be at least 20 minutes, I made it back onto a main road. The snow wasn't as deep, traffic was sparse, but at least there were other cars. At least there were other people. I drove straight home. When I finally got in, I locked every door, shut every window, and sank onto the couch, shaking. Days later, I found out there had been another incident on that same road. A driver stuck in the snow reported seeing a man in a truck. The authorities found nothing. I never went back down that road. These